Hello and welcome to Middle East Matters. Our top stories for you this week. Not the Egypt we were looking for. Thousands take to the streets again on the 3rd anniversary of the uprising. Described by one delegate as a dialogue of the deaf, negotiations at Geneva II remain deadlocked with no narrowing in the gulf that divides opinions over Assad's future. And Batira village battles against a wall it says will destroy an historically valuable architecture and ruin locals' livelihoods. A day of protests and mourning marked the 3rd anniversary of Egypt's uprising. Some 49 people were killed as demonstrations raged across the country and police and protesters clashed in central Cairo. This as plans for presidential polls were announced and Egypt's top military body gave its approval for the now Field Marshal El-Sisi to run for presidency. Laura Manon and Claire Williams bring us a flashback from the fall of Mubarak to the rise of El-Sisi.
In the midst of the Arab Spring, Egypt's popular uprising began on January 25, 2011. Tens of thousands protested, demanding long-term President Hosni Mubarak step down. The authorities tried to stamp out dissent. Over 850 protesters died. The president promised reforms and pledged not to stand for re-election.
I'm saying this honestly and sincerely, considering the current circumstances. I never had the intention to run as a candidate for another term. I have already given enough of my time to Egypt and its people.
His words failed to placate the demonstrators. After 3 decades of rule, Mubarak stepped down and handed power to the Army Council. Field Marshal Tantawi promised a peaceful transition towards elected civilian rule. In January 2012, a coalition led by the Muslim Brotherhood's Freedom and Justice Party won the most seats in drawn-out parliamentary elections. On June 30th, the Brotherhood's leader, Mohamed Morsi, won the presidential election, becoming the first democratically elected Egyptian president, as well as the first civilian and Islamist to hold the post.
We must make real the demands of the Egyptian population and transfer power to civilian authorities elected by the people.
By August, President Morsi had stripped the military of a say in legislation and drafting a new constitution. He named General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi as head of the army and defense minister. Within months, anger on the streets rose. Opponents of the new Islamist-dominated government called for Morsi to step down. Amid mass demonstrations on July 3, 2012, the army removed Morsi from the presidency. As head of the army, it was General al-Sisi who announced Morsi's ouster.
This roadmap includes the temporary suspension of the constitution.
Sisi's popularity grew in the anti-Morsi camp. Pro-Morsi supporters argued he'd led a coup d'etat. Security forces cracked down hard on them in August. Over 1,000 were killed and thousands more arrested. On December 25th, the government declared the Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist group. Liberal politicians and activists fear a return of Mubarak-era military rule. On Monday, Egypt's top military body gave its approval for Sisi to run for president. The election is scheduled for mid-April. It's set to be followed by parliamentary elections.
Slow and unsteady marks the pace of talks between Syrian groups at Geneva II. The issue of transferring power remains deadlocked, and the first sign of any breakthrough came with the Syrian regime saying women and children would be allowed safe passage to leave Homs, and aid supplies would be allowed in. Homs has been under siege since June of 2012. On Tuesday, however, the logistical details of this promise were still being debated. Claire Murphy explains.
Day 2 of face-to-face negotiations between the warring factions of Syria, and a concession is made. Safe passage for women and children out of the besieged old city of Homs, where at least 2,500 citizens remain cut off from food and electricity.
If the armed groups, if the terrorists in the city of Homs allow these children and women to move and to leave the old city of Homs, we shall allow them immediately every access, and not only that, we shall provide them with shelter, we shall provide them with medicine.
But the opposition argues relief should be brought in rather than the women and children evacuated. They also denounce the regime's conditions.
They are stalling, wall stalling. They are trying to use delay tactics, trying to go into details about information that can't be verified. They are asking about names, a list of names of people.
As the talks took place in Geneva, footage uploaded to the internet purported to show neighbourhoods of Homs being targeted by government forces. Syria's third city, now a shadow of itself. It's strategically vital, located in what was once a rich agricultural area on the main highway to Aleppo. It was dubbed the capital of the revolution, one of the first cities to rise up against the president 3 years ago. But now this city of 1 million people has been reduced to little more than 200,000. Any civilians who have not fled are in danger.
This is a little child who's about 2 years old. He got hit with this water bomb in his house. Is this what the UN is waiting for? Is this what the UN is waiting for, until we think any more children left?
Many areas of the city lie in ruins, a warning from the regime. Rebel-held neighbourhoods like Baba Amr staged a fierce resistance but eventually fell. Just like the estimated 500 families living under siege in the old city, the price of resistance has been high.
And Turkey's central bank is holding an emergency session this Tuesday to try and stop the tumble of the lira. Despite previous intervention efforts by the bank, the lira hit a record low on Monday. The bank's plan is to be announced at midnight local time, with analysts expecting to see a big interest rate rise announced.
Under mounting pressure, Turkey's central bank has announced an emergency meeting. Currency intervention measures undertaken by the bank last week failed to stop the lira from hitting its lowest level against the dollar. The bank has plowed $2 billion into the foreign exchange market in an attempt to shore up the currency.
In order to protect themselves, of course, they are moving towards foreign assets. So they are increasing their deposits in foreign exchange.
In 2014 alone, the lira has plunged over 7% against the dollar. Increasing interest rates is one of the tools at the central bank's disposal to fix the currency crisis. But it has been under pressure from Turkey's scandal-embroiled government not to raise rates to bolster the lira. The government is concerned that an increase in rates could further impact slowing growth.
Since December the 17th and the political issues, business has dropped off by 80%.
Our sales have dropped by 70% since the 17th of December.
Turkey's latest currency crisis is similar to market turbulence in other emerging markets. According to analysts, Turkey falls into the list of countries vulnerable to tapering measures by the US Federal Reserve as it tightens its monetary policy.
A Roman-era village could be ruined, locals fear, if the barrier for Batir is completed. The Israeli Supreme Court is to rule on whether or not to allow the planned route for a concrete wall separating the Palestinian village from Israel. Israeli authorities say disruption to the village would be minimal and that the wall is a necessary security measure. Farmers, however, say their livelihoods and a water system that dates back over 2,500 years would be destroyed.
These green fields may soon be overrun with concrete. If the Israeli Supreme Court rules against the Palestinian village of Batir this week, farmers here may be isolated by a giant wall, Israel's separation barrier.
We appealed to UNESCO to protect one of the world's historical, ancient, cultural and natural sites from destruction by this wall, which isn't justified. The borders have been open since 1948, without any incidents.
Israel has built over half of the 700-kilometre barrier, mainly in the West Bank, since 2002. Dubbed the apartheid wall by Palestinians, Israel argues the construction stops attacks on the Jewish state. But locals say new sections will separate farmers from their crops and obstruct a vital Roman-era irrigation system that's put their village on the map as a tourist attraction.
The site of Batir is indeed very unique, with a very long history that goes back some 4,000 years. I think what's special about it is that the modern village encapsulates, I think, the tradition of the agriculture there, the use of water, the connection between a man and the land.
This relic of the past draws on natural springs to pump life into the community, which comprises of around 5,000 residents. Elders are in charge of allocating the water.
Batir is made up of 7 families. Every day, a different family sends an elder member to measure the water at a specific point of the pool. He measures the amount of water which came down from the spring during the night and then supplies it to his family. Everyone has a share proportionate to the land they own.
It's their simple way of life the farmers are fighting to preserve. Their only hope now that Israel's top judges will hear their plea and stop the wall in its tracks.
Well, that's it for this edition. If you missed the start of the show or want to re-watch any of the reports here, don't forget you can see them all on our website, france24.com, and of course tune in next week for more Middle East Matters.